The purpose of this video is to record the steps necessary for generating gen files or providing instructions to create gen files in FDOTSS4, GeoPack SS4. To begin, you'll see that on this particular project, this corridor has been processed in the preliminary phase. As you can see, it's not as tight as far as the interval drop or the spacing of the processing. And if you step through here, you can see that the final corridor is in the proposed corridor is being shown in the cross-section view, super elevated here as it moves on through there. Now, the first things that you're going to need for the gen files are there's three things. You'll need the top surface of the proposed design, the bottom surface of the proposed design, and then the existing ground line. And those will need to be provided in cross sections. So in order to accommodate that, there are other design stages that are provided in FDOTSS4. If you click on the boundary handle of the corridor and go to the properties, which is the very first button, you'll see that in the design stages, there are several design stages that you can go to. Normally, you work in the preliminary stage, and then if you want more detail, you go to design and final. And if you process the corridor in the final stage, the one thing you'll notice is that it processes at a tighter interval and more detail is being shown. It's a lot smoother. You know, the radius, the curve has additional template drops because of the curvature, and you just get a smoother model. You also will get cross sections a little tighter, and they won't be corded as much. But also, two other stages that are in that list are the top mesh and the bottom mesh. And if you process final top mesh, that's exactly what you'll get. You'll get only the top skin components being a surface created, and here you can see a top mesh only. If you zoom in here, you'll see that it's just the top points. It's really just the top skin. You'll see it in the cross section as well. And then you can do the same thing for the final. The other thing to note is that right now it's displaying not only the shapes, the top mesh shape, but it's also displaying all the line work. You can turn the line work off very easily by going to the Project Explorer, and if you go into the Civil Standards, you'll see that the features that are being shown, the components, the corridor lines, 2D lines, and the terrain display. Now the top mesh is actually a terrain. You see it's here, it's being displayed as a top mesh. But also are all these 3D lines. So this would be all of the line work that comes from your template. So the traffic separator lines that are out there, the curb lines that are out there, and you can turn them all off simply by clicking this checkbox, and all the lines will turn off here. And that will make it easier for cutting cross sections. You won't see all those extra points out there. Once you have processed a top mesh in this case, then what you're going to do is you're going to go to the corridor cross sections utility, and you're going to create cross sections about the center line. And it will bring up the dialog, and you can go in and set your cross section spacing every 50 feet. Whatever you're going to need to turn in for your .gen files. So there's a preference out here. You can do it at whatever scale. Load those up. And then typically you would put them in, I always put them in view 5 and give it a name. Now what I would normally do is, if this is going to be the top surface, I would call it, you can either call it RDXS top or whatever, but then basically what that will do is be a cross section set for the top surface of the cross sections, which you're going to use to create the gen file. You would repeat that procedure by going to the corridor design stages, and you can change it to the bottom mesh. and you'll see that it will process the bottom mesh, and that is also on its own, has its own feature and its own level for that matter. And now I'm looking at just the bottom of that entire surface. Okay. And then once you have that, you'll create the cross sections. And I've already created the cross sections out here, so I'm going to open up my models. And you'll see I've got an existing cross sections, a top cross sections, and a bottom cross section. So let me just double click into the top. And I'll just close these other two views, expand this one, and if you go to the viewer, I'm looking at the top, so I want to look at the top cross sections. We'll highlight it, and I can select in here the view setting here. Let me change this view setting real quick. Should be set to wireframe. And now you see, if I move forward a little bit, you'll see this is the top. I set this to 0.5 and click on a cross section. You see I'm getting the top line of the surface out here. And I'm also getting the existing line. Now I've done the same thing with the model. I close the model dialog. I've done the same thing with the bottom. So I open that view up, and I can switch to the bottom cross sections, and I'll go to a cross section here. Now I've got a bottom surface. And then the existing is just really just plotting the existing ground. And I've got the existing ground here. And in order to plot the existing ground, all you need to do as a cross section, all you really need to do is come over to the, if I go to the multi-model view again, is when I go to cut cross sections, I can just turn this feature off. So just like I did with the lines, if I go to the Project Explorer, I can go to the features, and in the feature definitions for terrains, if I don't want to display a particular terrain that's out there, I can just check it off. That would be the bottom mesh. And because I have this active surface out here, if I cut cross sections about the center line, all I'm going to get is the existing ground line that is along that center line. Okay. Now the reason that there's the 3D lines again, it's still out there. The whole corridor is out there. It's just being displayed in a different manner. Okay, once you have the cross sections, so let me switch back to one of those other views. Let's say the top view, where I'm looking at the top line. Then there's a couple of different ways to get the gen file or the information for the gen file. I'm going to show you a new way and an old way. So the new way, there is in the cross-section tools is an end area volumes, and this will generate a report of each of the cross sections and the vertices on all the cross sections. So even though it does attempt to calculate earthwork, what we're really after in this case is the XML report, because then there is an ASCII report that we can get from it. So I don't need the baseline 98 surface, and I really don't need the existing ground surface. And so what this will do is it will create a report, and you can do it within a station range. If you want to just start at a particular station, like I'll just start at 701 and let it go to the very end, 726.15. And when I hit apply, it will give me this report. And there are several different things. Notice that this end area volume is 0. That's because I was only processing against one surface. But what you really want to pay attention to here is all of the different reports that you can view. And the one that's very important is this one right here, which is the ASCII input format. And what this gives you is a station, an offset, and an elevation of each of the lines that are in the cross sections. So this would probably, well, this is because it starts at -150. This would be the existing ground line, and its point information. This is the proposed top surface, and then it goes on to the existing ground line, and proposed top surface. Now, this may not be in the correct format, but it's really quick and easy to build, and it uses the new tools. And then you can just, since it's an ASCII file, you can do a file save as and save it to a text. And I would probably save it to like a SR61 top and an existing or something like that. And then you can use the editor to revise it necessary for the MultiLine earthwork program. But you could deliver this file. This is an acceptable file to be delivered to construction from design. Now, you would do that for each of your different cross sections. So if you want to switch to the other model for the bottom, and you do the same thing, you go to the earthwork tool, and you can tell it you're working with the bottom set. You only need the design surface and the existing surface. And if you turn this off and turn on just the design, I don't think it's going to matter. But if you just pick a station range, I'll do the same thing. Let me pick this station here to start with. Actually, I shouldn't have picked it that way, but pick it from the... Go back to this tool again and set the station range by picking it off the list. I think we started at 701 and went to the very end and then hit apply, and it will bring up that formatting, that report again. Okay, once you have, that's one way of doing it. Another way is to use the legacy tools, which is in the cross-section tools of the, I have a hard time trying to find it here sometimes. It's in the, I think it's right here. There's a reports option, which I'm not seeing right here. I usually do it from the pull down. So let me go to the applications, geopack, road, and then there's cross-section and reports. And then here is a multi-line report that you can use. And most people, if you're familiar with creating the .gen files using this tool, this is just a review. And then you'll just tell it which job and what the center line is. And you can come out here and select the elements that you want to. And I'll just reset and match this line right here. And then add this to the list. And then you can, you know, select another line. I don't use this tool that much. I usually will just show you how to process. So this would be like what I would call the bottom.gen. So that's the bottom line. And once you have it, look for through all the cross sections from this range for that level, it will create basically that same type of report. So it's going through, and then if I go in here, there's a bottom.gen file that was just created, and I can choose open. And now I'm looking at the same thing. This is the basically the, and I don't know if that's the correct one there. So let me just make sure. Didn't look right. So let me come over here and I'm going to create this one as bottom 2 and hit apply. And I probably need to start that again. So go to multi-line, select the level, and I should be looking at the bottom cross sections. And so I can come in here. Need to go to one that's, here we go. Reset, match this line, add it to the list. There's the bottom mesh, and then choose to apply. If I browse out here, there's a bottom two, and I can choose to open this one. And this is a typical ground multi-line data type. And then it shows you the station, and it gives you all the points of just that line. And you could do the same thing for each of for the existing line and also for the top line. And that's how you would create the files necessary, the .gen files necessary for construction. So it's just a combination of changing the design stage to a top mesh, bottom mesh, cutting the cross sections, and using either the report tool in SS4 from the end area volumes .xml, or using the legacy multi-line report tool. So hopefully this helps.